Hi, my name is Sabina Carlson, and for those of you who know me, before January 12th, I consider myself less a crisis mapper than a crisis farmer. I do not speak PHP. I'm not here because I speak PHP or because I understand, I like technology. I'm here because I speak Creole, and I'm in love with Haiti. So I am a part of, thankfully, to me, crisis mapping was more about the issue of translation. And so I began to participate in the three-part crisis mapping platforms we talked about before, Haiti, Noula, and the new IOM kiosk project. But to me, again, crisis mapping for me is crisis translation. So you see my slides are going to be in Creole. It's just going to keep you guys up to date, make sure you're paying attention. This is a sample message that came into the Noula platform, and it describes a really clear humanitarian need, a camp that needs basic services like shelter, food, and public toilets. It should be easy to map this translate this to humanitarian response. But multiply this by 1.5 million people that were displaced after the earthquake of January 12th, and you can see the conversation becomes more difficult and the translation is harder. How do you translate 1.5 million human stories into a humanitarian response? How do you use stories to decide where you send the World Food Program truck? Is it to Camp Karai with 7,000 in planned settlement, or to the spontaneous site of 40,000 right next door? So in order to make these kind of operational decisions on a day-to-day basis, humanitarians use tools like data sets, but people don't speak in terms of data sets. People speak in terms, they don't say, today I've been eating half my normal calorie intake because my livelihoods assets have been affected by 75%. They say, I'm hungry. But humanitarians use data. These are two different language sets, and there has to be a constant level of translation back and forth between them. People don't speak in data, they speak in terms of stories. So this is where the role of crisis mapping, I think, is as crisis translation. So what we do is we harness this essential humanitarian information that comes from the ground and translate it into something that humanitarians can use operationally, what we in the UHP project used to call operational. And the same question with geolocation. People do not speak in terms of GPS coordinates. People speak in terms of us in UHP, they don't text in with their GPS coordinates. They say, I'm behind this school, on this road, in this impasse, which is not on any maps until OpenStreetMap came along. But again, humanitarians, in order to navigate the over 1,000 IDP sites, need GPS coordinates. They speak languages of SSIDs, P codes, using administrative boundaries. We've got to translate. They're going to be able to have a geospatial awareness of where these problems are. So again, that's the role of crisis mapping, is to translate. It's us digging for clues inside SMS messages, plugging them into OpenStreetMaps, then going that to Google Earth, extracting GPS coordinates, and giving them to Southcom so they can deploy their helicopters. We also need to translate between different communication tools, because most of the people on the ground, Haiti's got, some statistics say 70% cell phone saturation. And despite the large number of internet places you can find in the camps, there's not the same level of internet access as you have with humanitarians. Most of the humanitarians I know at the UN log base operate off of laptops, Blackberries, there's online requisition forms, emailing plans back and forth. Again, the goal of crisis mapping here to me is crisis translation, is harnessing, in this case, all the great information that is coming via mobile phones and putting it on an online platform that's accessible to humanitarians. So platforms like Noula and Haiti are extracting that and putting it on an online platform that humanitarians can access during the day-to-day jobs. And we talk about translation, and translation is about voices. So we're bringing the voice, crowdsourcing, voice people on the ground. But it's not exclusive. It can work with other data sets. In fact, it's stronger when it works with other forms of data coming in from the ground. As much as I make fun of PDNAs, they do have a valid place in humanitarian response. But it's not enough just to translate the response. It's into an actionable, to translate a voice into an actionable information. You have to translate the actionable information into action. It's just as important to map response to need as it is to map a place to a GPS coordinate. So what does that look like? In Haiti with the cluster system, we have the cluster systems deployed. So that often looks like taking information, treating it by category, and giving the appropriate cluster leads. But of course, in crisis mapping, it's always more interesting when we have a crisis. So this is an example of a mapping exercise we did with the Noula platform, that in the event of a hurricane in Haiti, how would we take the information from the ground and map it ahead of time to the appropriate responders? So it's a little bit complicated, but that's what it would look like. And again, the crisis mapping, it's not just about translating from Creole into English. or Creole into French, Spanish. It's about translating the language that Haitians use on a day-to-day basis to express their reality, this crowdsourced language, into humanitarian response. And you have me here, I'm speaking to you today, you're listening to me, but while you're listening to me, there are 1.5 million conversations happening on the ground. And I'm here to ask you all how we're listening to them.